Gulfstream X to the stage, please, for our last speaker this evening. And I want to thank you all for making the journey tonight around kind of a different campfire. When all the speakers were confirmed and selected and confirmed, I went to Jeff and I said, I'm really excited about our TEDx Denver Teachers Night, but there just seems to be something missing. And that thing that was missing, that element that was missing to me, was students. So you've seen Jackson and Corey, our filmers this evening, and you've heard students play up here. I also felt it was very important to have a student speaker. So really the next day on campus, I caught David, pulled you out of Miss Eskison's class, I think. Thank you for letting me do that. And we actually had like a surprisingly emotional encounter by the pond, because I said, David, I think your voice is needed in a larger tapestry of teachers talking about what motivates us to teach, and how we are passionate and how we can maintain that passion. And what has resulted from this collaboration with David has absolutely reinvigorated my faith in the power of being young and idealistic. And also it really has rejuvenated my faith in the future. So we have some future leaders up here. Please welcome David Corboy and Gulfstream X.
every time we play that piece, it's so moving, so powerful to me. So invasive, so I don't even know how to describe it. It places me into an alternate reality where strings tell stories and the drum beat is the natural rhythm to life. And it's comforting to know that something in my life can supply me with so much internal power and so much reassurance of my direction and path in life. The simple truth is that music is not who I am, or it's not what I do, but it's who I am. My name's David Corboy. I'm a musician, a soccer player, a brother, a son, and a drug addict. And I'm sure many of you weren't expecting that last one. To start off, I'd just like to thank Colin and Cooper, because that piece is nothing without these two. I mean, even with the two top world-class musicians, I'd take these two any day, just because it's such a personalized composition. While we're on that, I picked up the bass guitar very short 5 years ago, and I was really disappointed when all I heard was, can you just strum that real loosely, just strum it. Real gross sound like that. I was expecting to hear something like, you want to play the beginning to Bob O'Reilly real quick for me? Something real pretty, something real smooth, like what Cooper was just playing. I wanted, you know, like every beginner musician, I was expecting to be Eddie Van Halen, but apparently that wasn't the case. And about that time, I joined my first band with Colin as well, and Corey Simpson and a few other kids. And it wasn't necessarily a band. It was really more of a status symbol. It was more of a, hey, let's say we're in a band so we can just tell a bunch of people we're in a band. Yeah, let's practice tonight. And 3:30 after school came and we were all busy. We were all playing Halo or doing something on the Xbox. And with me not doing much in terms of extracurricular activities, and the band certainly not doing anything, at the end of 8th grade I had a lot of spare time, so I picked up drugs for the very first time. And that started off as every few months it was an occasional thing, and it turned into, more of a monthly habit than a weekly habit. And then it became daily. Became something that I needed, something that I felt obligated to use in order to feel confident in myself or content with who I was as a human being. And it got to the point where I had my friends telling me, dude, you gotta stop. I even had kids who I had used drugs with saying, you gotta stop. And I didn't listen. All I did was really just give them the middle finger, I mean, metaphorically speaking, or literally. And it got to the point where these drugs had been, they were really the symptom of the problem, because these had been leading into other problems with anger and distrust within myself, and thinking that I was just this one huge screw up. And it got to the point where the ones around me felt obligated to do something. So on June 17th, my parents had enough and decided that I needed to go to a wilderness rehabilitation program. And on that day, I got home from work and walked into my kitchen, where I was greeted by two men the size of Shaquille O'Neal and Dikembe Mutombo. Yeah, they were huge and scary. And they walked up to me and they cornered me in my kitchen. And they started searching me if I had anything, because they've dealt with people who have had knives and weapons of that sort. They explained to me that I was going to a wilderness rehabilitation program in rural Utah, and I had no idea what that was. I assumed I was going to some camp-based program where I'd be staying in log cabins and whatnot, and doing therapy as like a side thing. It wasn't necessarily the case. I got there and was greeted by two also fairly large men, and they gave me some clothing, some shoes, and a huge backpack, and said, get in the van. And we headed out into the rural mountains of Utah in the middle of summertime. While I was there, just to give you a brief overview of what it looked like, I got there, no showers, your shelter was really just a tarp. You had a tarp and you had a little piece of foam that you slept on. And you had a sleeping bag, and they put the sleeping bag on your phone. So for 70 days, I involved myself in hiking and group therapy sessions, and on on the more negative side of things, I involve myself in negative thought processes, depressive thought process, if you will, self-harm and manipulation and lying. But it does get better. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here in front of you with these two gentlemen speaking and playing. After 70 days there, I wasn't ready to go home by any means. If I would have gone home, I would have relapsed within that week. There's no doubt in my mind. So I went to a residential treatment facility in Clinton, Montana called Kramer Creek, and it was there that I met three of the most influential people of my entire life, and I can safely say that even though I'm only 18. The first night there, I met Mike Boderman, who was a staff there, and he was as big as my transporters. This guy was a monster. I got there, and he's wearing this, real small shirt, aviators. He's got this beefy mustache, and I'm holding my bass, and he walks up and he just goes, "Nice bass," and walks away. I don't know why, but that's one of the most intimidating things someone's ever said to me. And then that very same night, I met Bradley, who's sitting in the audience today, and it'd be lying of me to say that he's any smaller than either Mike or the next person I'm going to introduce. And he's laughing, but he knows it's true. But Bradley was a huge help, and I'll go into this further in a little bit because he was doing the same thing I was doing. He went to Wilderness 2 weeks before I did on May 27th. I think I got that right, yeah. He arrived at Kramer Creek on August 7th. I think I'm right about that one too. Yeah. And we both got there, we were both doing the same things, and we both eventually moved down to Texas together. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. But then I met Andy Bodeman, who was Mike Bodeman's son. And even though he's his son, this guy was bigger than Mike. He was taller and wider than Mike. And everybody met him that one day, and everybody was like, "Oh God, no, don't come in our group, don't come in our cabin, you're a monster. We don't want to deal with you right now." But Bradley and I, we started our journey together, and we started off with a plan. And he's gonna laugh, but most of you guys won't think this is funny because it was reality. Our plan was this: fake our way through the entire program, go home, use drugs again, and just do everything we wanted to. I mean, we thought we were geniuses. We thought we were smarter than everybody. I mean, as far as we were concerned, we could manipulate people who were there to call out manipulators, but we were better, so it doesn't matter. But I mean, and again, it does get better as months went by and days went by. A few months in, we started learning that there was a reason we were there. At first we were stuck in this mindset of do what we can to get out. But after a while, we learned, and Neil Peart put it best when he said, "The way in is the way out." We created our own destiny, our own reality. It was what we wanted to achieve, what we wanted to pursue, and so we started learning. We started accepting some of the things that were happening, and this is where Mike and Andy come in so huge, because whether Andy was teaching us a simple blues scale on the guitar, or Mike was teaching us that. Regardless of our problems in the past or in the future, we need to appreciate ourselves. It was always something we could take from them. There was always something that we could learn and apply to our lives, and I know that we'll be applying for the rest of our lives. And tonight I've been talking about, I've shown you my passion through music and playing with these two gentlemen, and doing improvisational jazz and playing set compositions like we've done 2 of them. And I've talked about addiction. And for many people, it's so hard to distinguish between the two, because many people think that, passion is something that somebody could never give up or never surrender to anybody, no matter what the purpose or cause is. But to me, that sounds an awful lot like drug addiction. I was not willing to give up using or smoking or whatever it may be, or I was not willing. That was because, as far as I was concerned, everybody else was wrong. I was right. And I've heard different explanations of the two as well. Like Shakespeare once said, "We are consumed by that which we are nourished by." And I can't help but completely disagree with that too. I'm nourished by music on a daily basis, but I'm not consumed. Yesterday, I got back from a soccer tournament. The day before, I'm supposed to speak in front of all in front of all of you, and I'm still able to pursue both passions. I have teachers who wake up, many of you are consumed by, or nourished by teaching, but are not consumed by it, because I still have teachers who I know wake up at 6 a.m. every Saturday and watch English Premier League soccer. I mean, this is not, the difference as I see it is that addiction is something that consumes and destroys your life, whereas passion builds and nourishes your life. So, I mean, and experiencing that firsthand is just a whole, it creates a whole other level of understanding. And I just, like, as I told you my story, I just want to point out that my story is not even a blip on the radar of what music has done for this world. Because, I mean, all throughout my journey through treatment, music was the consistent theme. But, I mean, it's nothing in comparison to what's been done. 1948, South Africa is poisoned by apartheid, forced to relocate into government-ran housing facilities and work unreal amounts of hours for microscopic amounts of pay. And many of us will simply never understand the magnitude of that pain because it's unheard of in what we've lived. It's not real. So what do? They create beauty where there's been, they made beats on the drums, they hum melodies, belted harmonies, and they escaped the disgusting reality that was British rule over South Africa. They beat the mortifying social norm that was apartheid, because eventually British rule was forced out of South Africa. And freedom was regained for black South Africans. Nelson Mandela was freed from prison after 30 years, or over 30 years, of imprisonment for trying to do the right thing. I think it'd be ignorant of anybody to say that music did not play a huge role in this. In fact, I would go so far as to say that music was what kept the reality of freedom in black South Africans alive. It was the driving force that led to a life that was not seen or heard of for generations. As I end my speech tonight, and we play the second movement of the song we started for all of you, let your mind wander to whatever it is. Don't try and focus on what is being played. Allow it simply to be a thought process for what you've heard tonight. Allow what you've heard tonight to invade in your mind and explore everything you possibly can. I mean, even so much as think about what you had for lunch today, or think about something deeper, like how you can be a better parent, or how you can be a better teacher. Just whatever you do, don't put boundaries. Allow your mind to explore whatever it can. Thank you.
Please be all screaming. Thank you, Sean, Mike, Missy, Jeff. Thanks everybody for coming. Be sure to tip your waiter.